So, we just had the 10th anniversary of the September 11th attacks, and I didn't want to talk about it because it seemed like everyone on the entire internet was like, 9/11 was the most 9/11 in the history of 9/11! And, everyone had their own little take, and I really didn't want to contribute, but I had a thought. I realized that there's a lot of kids now who are like 15, 16, 17 years old who were just little-ass kids when this happened, and now they're basically thinking adults or young adults, and they don't really remember a time before 9/11 and all of the cultural changes that happened with it. The world that we live in now, that's just the world they know. Now, it's not like we didn't have problems before 9/11. If you look at the 90s, there was a lot of stuff going on. I mean, we had the first Gulf War, which was, just as lame as this one, except we weren't there for years and years and years. And then we had things like Waco and the federal government overstepping its bounds, and we had this giant debate that everyone seems to have forgotten about that centered around censorship. And there was all this stuff about music's making the kids go crazy. Oh, these violent video games are making the kids go crazy. Everything in the movie theater is making the kids go crazy. There's all this violence, and it's just being pumped into their heads all the time. And they're just going to go out and they're going to kill people, and they're going to rape women, and all this horrible stuff because they see it on TV, they hear it in their music, and they play it in these video games. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but in the 2000 election, it was Bush versus Gore. And you have George W. Bush and Dick Cheney, two fucking hard-right Republicans who are basically all about family values, whatever the fuck that means, and they're in the pockets of, the moral majority and Jerry Falwell and all that horrible shit, so they're pro-censorship. And then on the other side, you got Al Gore and Joseph Lieberman. Joseph Lieberman is probably one of the most pro-censorship senators there is, because he's the guy that held up Marilyn Manson's Antichrist Superstar and said, like, this is a threat. This is the most disgusting thing ever promoted by a mainstream record label. And Al Gore, of course, is the husband of Tipper Gore, who was behind a lot of the big efforts to censor music in the fucking late 80s. But after the 9/11 attacks, the whole censorship thing sort of went away. And when I say the censorship thing went away, I don't mean censorship went away. I mean that resistance to censorship went away. I mean, because after 9/11, we were probably being censored more than ever. I mean, the FCC was working overtime. There were a lot of people people were being scrutinized for what they checked out from the library. People were being scrutinized from the websites they visited. There were songs that weren't allowed on the radio. There was all kinds of censorship going on, but no one cared anymore because everyone had something more important to worry about. They had to worry about terrorism. They had to worry about, planes being hijacked, and everyone was filled with fear, and no one wanted to resist the government anymore. No one wanted to resist the status quo. No one wanted to resist these people that were trying to take art and put it in a box and make it something that's, safe and compliant and not a threat to those in power. I mean, in the 90s, we had subversive literature and cinema, both of which could probably be encapsulated in Fight Club. At the end of Fight Club, there's a bunch of buildings being, blown up and falling to the ground. I don't think you could do that anymore. We had subversion in music, like Marilyn Manson and Nine Inch Nails and Korn and the Deftones and all these bands that had this very aggressive sound, this very anti-authoritarian message. And now that's been replaced by stuff like Katy Perry, who's basically just a pair of tits and a feel-good message, and the closest we come to anything subversive is like Lady Gaga with her crazy meat dress. And it's not like no one's creating subversive art, it's just that it's not infiltrating the mainstream. It's not getting any sort of widespread recognition. And it kind of reminds me of this whole debate that's been going on for the last, 5 or 10 years now. And I think it was started by Roger Ebert, and the debate is about whether or not video games are art. And I never really understood the argument, I never really cared about it, but I started thinking, there's a lot of kids now, young adults and kids, who basically they don't watch movies, they don't read books, the only thing they do is play video games, and then they say, video games must be art because that's the only art that I even enjoy. So if those aren't art, then what the fuck am I doing? It seems like they're put in a position where if they admit that Call of Duty doesn't belong in the same category as Kurosawa and Rembrandt, then, you know, they're fucked, because they're basically admitting that they're stunted piles of shit that have never experienced anything of emotional or intellectual resonance. It seems like those that do create art create it out of this selfishness and this self-glorification. You know, it's not about, you know, I'm an artist and here's what I have to say. It's about, I'm an artist, worship me. And that's how you get people like Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, and the list goes on and on. It's all about the cult of that person. This is me, I'm important, and everyone should acknowledge it. And that's the end of it. There's no using your lyrics to convey something beyond the obvious. There's no taking your art and using your powers as an artist, using your powers as someone who can create emotions and thoughts and ideas in other people, and trying to use that to make some sort of change in the world, or at least within, you know, your audience. That doesn't really exist anymore, except for, you know, in these little niche pockets here and there. But in the mainstream, that doesn't exist. It's all about, I'm awesome, and, you know, these people, they listen to these people because they dream of being that way themselves one day. Like, you know, Lady Gaga's great because one day I will be Lady Gaga, and everyone will love me and adore me. It seems like we're approaching a point where people realize there's a problem, there's massive discontent, but it seems like people either have bad solutions, like, we just gotta let Ron Paul, he fixed everything, or they don't have any solutions at all. They're just like, yeah, there's lots of problems, but I don't know how to fix it. And it seems like no one has suggested, I've not heard it said by anyone, that what we need is to begin to reconnect with art. We need to have that intellectual and emotional catharsis, that thing that's building up inside of us, that's informing us, that's giving us that mythology, that iconography, that's, you know, getting us all on the same page. And, you know, we're perfectly willing to talk about the problem and just sit around and be like, them fucking Republicans, them fucking Democrats. But we don't have anything that takes our anger and takes our fear and takes our frustration and turns it into something that we understand. It seems like the only time people embrace art is either when it's stupid because those people are stupid, or when it's really stupid because those people are smart. You know, like things like Friday, and you know, we listen to that like, oh, it's so awful, everyone listen to it because it's so bad. When's the last time everyone wanted to listen to something because it was so good? Like, oh, this is so beautiful and relevant. I don't hear that anymore. I haven't heard that in a long time. And I think that might be a bigger problem than what politician is going to get elected next, is that we live in a culture that doesn't give a fuck enough about itself to create art, to embrace art. We just want fucking popcorn and fluff and bullshit. And, you know, bright colors and big tits. That's all that we seem to give a fuck about anymore. And to me, that's the problem. Or at least it's a big part of the problem, and it's a part that no one seems to address. Maybe people don't agree with me on this. Maybe people don't think we need that anymore. We've progressed beyond art, and now we can just solve everything by bickering with each other. But I don't think so. So, yeah.